Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, a homeowner association president led a squad of Karens to attack me for fishing at a public lake. I'm not even part of this crazy HOA, and yet they keep harassing me. Let's dive right into the story. And the title story starts like this. So I like to fish, not surprising given that I live next to a giant lake and my house is basically attached to it. I don't fish directly off my backyard since the fish don't get close to it, but there are plenty of public docks just a second away. If I get the time on weekends, I could be out there for hours. Sometimes I take my girlfriend, but I get the feeling that the passion of casting and reeling is not her thing yet. For a bit more context, I'm nowhere near financially struggling, but my house is probably the smallest one on the street. Getting a house on the lake is already expensive, but you should just see the damn mansions next to my suburban-looking house. They gotta be in the millions today. I never met any of the people who lived there until this story, and god am I happy I didn't. Like always, on a nice Saturday afternoon, I decided to go fishing on the dock. It was empty and quiet and I liked it that way. Even if there was another fisher there, it's usually pretty chill and no one bothers anyone. Well, that is, however, until I met Karen and her little gang. So they are a group of 4 women, but Karen seems to do most of the talking. She walked right in front of me while I was setting up my rod and waited for me to say something to her. Man, did she look pissed when I asked if I could help her. I could tell from the start that she was someone I was not gonna get along with, but I was not just gonna cower in front of her. Something about that little entitled smirk just agitated me. Anyways, without warning, she told me politely to get off the dock since I was trespassing on supposedly private property. I looked around to see if anyone else saw this as a joke, but her 3 little friends looked just as serious as her. Trying not to laugh, I calmly asked how I was trespassing since this was a public dock. And that is when she decided to give her backstory. So basically, she and her friends are all HOA officers who live in those big houses next to me, with Karen being the official president. They are tired of people of suspicious status, still don't know the criteria for that, ruining the image of their beautiful docks and lake. So they want me to leave so I don't scare people away. I really tried to keep my cool here. I have dealt with entitled people in the past, but this was a cartoonishly snobby group that I was up against. For even more context, I'm not a part of the HOA, I did not have a bad experience with them or anything, I just did not want to be a part of it. I bring this up because Karen would not stop talking about how important her officer role was to the HOA and how she was basically in charge of everything I did in the neighborhood if she thought I was gonna harm it. By this point, I was basically ready to give up fighting her, not give in, just accept that she was gonna be obnoxious no matter what, but the fact that she had no legal control over me and that I was in a public area meant that she could not do anything. I just kept stringing my rod and calmly explained that number 1, I'm not part of the HOA, and number 2, this was a public dock, and if she didn't believe me, there was a sign maybe 5 steps away that could tell her. She decided to change her tone from serious to desperation, but not in a reasonable way. For about a minute she went on about how fishing in this area was illegal since there was a shortage of fish, that I was harming the environment by doing so. I showed her that I had no place to store a fish and that I had always just been catching and releasing them, so in no way was I harming the environment. Well, she didn't like that answer, and out of nowhere, she started yelling as though I had just killed her dog or something. She was swearing, flailing her arms around, and got her friends to surround me so I could not leave. I was about half a foot taller than them all, but it was still a bit threatening. She started insulting my family, my house, my morals, you name it. It was so cliché that I did not even bother to give her a real response, just a blank face, and without warning, she grabbed my rod and snapped it clean in half. It felt like time slowed down for a second. Even if it was a new one I was just trying out and not my good one, I felt like I was dreaming from what a trashy move that was. I heard her friends laugh and talk about how I deserved it, while I just kind of stared at Karen in silence. Another one of them picked up my box of fishing gear and slammed it against the ground. Luckily, it was tough, so it only cracked, but all of the supplies came flying out. All 4 of them thought it was the funniest thing that had ever happened, and now was the point that I actually lost it. I started yelling at them, asking how they could be such terrible people and how someone could possibly enjoy making a living by just making people's lives worse. And by the way guys, that somehow reminds me of those AI channels on YouTube. And while we're at it, I just want to educate and inform my audience that these two channels provide wonderful, fully AI voiced and AI written stories. It is just wonderful what YouTube has become. Either way, let's continue with the story. So I promised President Karen that I would make sure she would never come near me again if she did not leave me alone. I guess it was good enough of a response to keep her and her friends going, but in a whole new direction. All four of them began shouting at me, telling me that I needed to be a man and leave their stuff alone since they earned it and worked hard to keep people like me out. Randomly, they started making threats about how they were gonna find out where I was and then beat me up. Now, I don't care what someone looks like or how I think I would fare in a fight with them, a threat was a threat and I lived right next to them. They could find me in a heartbeat and then who knows what would happen. I told them that I was not gonna let those threats slide and that I was gonna call the police if they said one more thing. Well, apparently they were all high on each other's entitlements, so they dared me to do it, and that is all I needed. Right in front of them, I dialed 911 and explained where I was and what was happening. Two of them looked a bit shocked, but the other two, including President Karen, looked just fine, as if they had a stack of evidence against me. Karen kept nonchalantly saying how wimpy I looked to call the cops on 4 innocent women and that I was just gonna embarrass myself in front of the cops, but I did not care. I did not want to lose one of the only places I could unwind at, and I definitely was not gonna lose it because of her. I tuned out all their comments until the cops showed up a couple minutes later. There were 2 officers, 1 man and 1 woman, who tried to assess the situation. I had not realized, but when I turned around, 2 Karens were trying their hardest to look like they were crying. The president, full of crocodile tears, ran up to the police officers and begged to take me away before I ruined more of their precious lake. Thank God the cops were good people and let me talk first. I explained that the lake was public, so I was allowed to be here. I was not a part of the HOA, so the Karens had no right to tell me what I could and couldn't do, and that they had damaged my property and made threats when I said I wouldn't leave. I showed them the mess of supplies and the broken fishing rod as evidence, and one of the officers asked President Karen if she had broken it, to which she hesitated but quickly admitted before explaining how it was justified since I was
suspicious non-HOA person?
And that she just wanted to keep her and her friends safe. She kept explaining her role as the HOA president and how important it was to her that she keep her people safe, and even though it was total BS, they let her try to defend herself. Her friends did not really say a word. In any case, neither of the cops bought it. To be extra safe, I gave the cops my address to prove that I was a resident here, so that even if the lake was private, I was still allowed to be there. We also double-checked the fishing rules for this area and found out that I was doing absolutely nothing wrong. None of the Karens liked that, and they started screaming again in front of the cops and making another scene like the cops were just gonna change their minds. Well, with no evidence of me doing anything wrong and the obvious lack of cooperation from the Karens, the cops advised me to file a police report and told the Karens to leave before they did something stupid, because if they kept going, they would be subject to arrest. Well, that got them to shut up. Acting like they had won, they turned and left without another word. I honestly did not even want to file the report. All 4 of them had enough money to get themselves out of whatever punishment that could be thrown at them, but at the same time, I did not want to come back to fish until I knew for a fact that I would be left alone. So I filed the police report and waited. In the meantime, I spread the word around, including a harshly written letter to the other members of the HOA. Luckily, the Karen mindset had not gotten to them all, and I got to speak with a couple members who promised I would be left alone, and they understood my position to not be involved with them. They were actually all nice people who I got to vent my problems, and weirdly, I felt a bit bad that people like them were completely overshadowed by the stereotypical HOA Karen snobs that control the rest of it. After the police report was processed, it became public what the Karens had done. I did not see them out anymore. They were a total laughingstock in the neighborhood, and thanks to a few strings being pulled by the rest of the HOA, all 4 of them lost their power. I don't think I will understand how someone could get to that level of entitlement, let alone a whole flock of them. If I even get to the point that I own a whole pond, the last thing I would be concerned about is people fishing. We are all just trying to make time for ourselves, and I don't think I could live with myself if I found myself enjoying that feeling of taking it away from others. The Karens did though, so I don't think they're entitled to getting that humanity card back. I hope none of you have to deal with this BS. And by the way guys, I also want to educate and inform you that if you ever see a video recommended to you by YouTube and you don't like that channel and don't ever want to see it again, including channels that are similar to those, then please click on the 3 dots and then click on Don't Recommend Channel. You will help make YouTube a better place. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. HOA suddenly tells us that we cannot go in and out of our condo for 10 hours a day starting Monday, lasting for at least a month with no definite end, and we just have to deal with it. We are renters. This cannot possibly be legal, can it? So before I get into this, we know that it's the landlord who is supposed to be dealing with the HOA and property manager, and that is why we pay rent, yada yada, but we have had a good working relationship for years and have always just handled basic interactions with the HOA and property manager on their behalf, like reporting things around the complex if something is broken, etc. We know about the state's warranty of habitability laws, and we are aware that our landlord is responsible for possibly putting us up somewhere else if we cannot live in our home reasonably or releasing us from the lease without penalty. Since this is really a problem with the HOA and not our landlord, the landlord also thinks this is insane. I'm trying to see if there's something we can do/say to them to get them up to halt this insanity, or be reasonable about making us LARP as Sing Sing residents before we lean in on the landlord to fulfill their legal obligations to us. As renters everywhere know, if you have a decent and nice landlord, you want to keep them happy. We actually rent a condo in a complex with an HOA and a property management company. The community is majority owner occupied with a few renters like us. A notice posted on our door on Thursday says that starting Monday, we cannot leave or enter our apartment from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. due to construction work. It was posted by the construction company contracted by the HOA/property management company to complete a project. The work is scheduled to end early December, but knowing what is/who is involved, there's no way they are going to get done in time during the cold season. So this will almost definitely continue into the new year. The notice was a complete surprise to us and our neighbors, and there was no heads up about this beforehand whatsoever. Our landlord was also taken by surprise. They only knew because we CC'd them on the first email to the HOA. The notice was very light on details. The whole thing is around 75 to 100 words long, and we had to call the construction company to clarify what the notice really meant. They confirmed that yes, we really cannot open our front door between those hours, and we need to either be locked in all day or be out all day. We then of course immediately emailed the HOA board member in charge of this project, CC'd the landlord, property manager and HOA president, and pleaded our case about how this notice is woefully inadequate and we have full lives and kids and everything, and their response was unhelpful and did not even address our concern, just some canned response about how this project is important to the community, blah blah blah. Charlie Brown teacher noise. Essentially, we were given one full business day, Friday, to completely append and rearrange our lives and just hope and pray that they get done by early December. We have very full lives between work and toddlers, we are in and out of the house all day, and there's absolutely no way we can comply with so little notice, not to mention that we have families scheduled to fly in and visit over the holidays. Please help and thank you. Edit, there are a lot of questions about what this work is exactly. I would have to look at the city's permit to see what exactly it all entails, but essentially, it's a major repair to fix long-term water pipes and leaking problems. Our detailed deficient notice only said that the inconvenience is due to concrete removal and replacement. But I think I know what the whole project is actually tackling. As renters, we are not privy to HOA business and discussions, so I only know superficially what's going on here. The building is roughly 45 years old, and for the last several years there have been water leaks and problems that have seeped through what is the ceiling of our underground parking garage. I myself am no engineer or construction expert, but I suspect the old pipes were galvanized and they are now old and were not replaced, and well, here we are. By the way, I'm just talking out of my rear here. Were galvanized pipes still allowed in the late 70s and early 80s? I don't know why exactly the pipes are bad. I'm just spitballing here. The ceiling's drywall insulation was stripped years ago for the continual band-aid fixes, and now I think they are finally doing the major work to get everything fixed permanently. I imagine that the concrete work has to do with the fact that part of the parking's garage ceiling is also our building's main walkway above, and they have to dig all that out to get to the pipes. I think, again, I have no real clue, it's been properly unattended for so long, and the project is admittedly massive to the HOA's ever-so-slight defense. Also, we don't consider ourselves unreasonable people. We fully understand that construction means inconveniencing people, and with enough notice and proper planning on their end, I would have been totally amenable to days here and there where I couldn't leave my house. Given the nature of the work and it involving my floor and garage ceiling, I'm just concerned that my ignoring the construction company and going about my life means that I cannot safely leave my house anymore. Update number 1, it's been about 9 hours since this post went up, and whoa, I didn't expect it to blow up as it did. I provide updates and responses as I can, but you know, full life with cute little tyrants, and it's just about Betty Bye time. So an important detail I initially left out is that we don't have another proper egress. Our front door is it. Also, the toddlers are too young for kindergarten, so there's no school they legally need to get to. We are still in the crayons don't go in your mouth phase of life, and the majority opinion here is to report it to the fire marshal. We have not done so yet. My husband and I talked it over and read all your messages, and we decided to message the HOA one more time. We are trying to be civil about this and allow them the opportunity to be more transparent and forthcoming about this whole debacle, especially now that more neighbors are getting involved and also think that this is insane. In our message, we asked what the safety plan is since we cannot use our front door, and we also said we would be sending the construction company and them our weekly schedule so they can work with us. We will see what happens. With the holiday on Monday, we still got a couple of days. A neighbor forwarded me some gossip and info. Part of this project apparently involves demolishing our front decks. We don't have front decks. Some units have little front alcoves where they could put small patio tables and chairs. We don't even have an alcove, so I guess that's what that means. We do have back decks, and they are definitely also above the parking garage, but it is all just conjecture until we hear more from the HOA and construction. My guess is that this is such a big project that they will just tell us last minute at the point in the project they get to the next major thing. In the construction company's defense, I guess they don't know exactly when they will get to it since it's so much it's gonna be dependent on weather and who knows how it'll cooperate in the long term, but you would think that they would at least give us a roadmap to how this whole thing goes. We have not heard back from our landlord today, so we don't know what they've learned, but they too think that this is insane. With this situation becoming a real crap show, we are hoping we can just be released from our lease early and move ASAP, since really, this is not supposed to be our mess. The landlord has been pretty great over the years, didn't raise our rents during the pandemic, and has been attentive when there have been issues, so we are hoping they will see that this is quickly devolving into an untenable situation for us and let us go. And now we got a comment from Reddit that was asking, here's the question you wanna ask, why is it impossible for you to open the door during those hours? Construction is not a good enough answer. Also, what about the construction? Is it hazardous airborne particulate? Are they scraping asbestos popcorn ceiling off the hallways? If it is, then you need more than just keeping the door shut. Is it something that would prevent access by emergency services? The fire marshal would have something to say about that. Comment number 2, they are trying to save money by not adding safety portals to and from the condos, where they put up the stuff that looks like scaffolding and then plywood on top to make a safe place to walk to and from your entryway. Just call the fire department. And now we got another update to the story. So many asked for an update, and now that things have mostly settled and this is the first day of relative calm, here I am delivering the blessed update and self-therapizing through writing. Sit back, it's gonna be a novella. Mama's gotta expunge and process some stuff after some of the most intense weeks of her life. So hubby and I read through all your comments and mulled over what to do. Thank you again for the help. We decided to first talk to a lawyer and sit on the fire marshal advice for the rest of the weekend, mainly to see what the lawyer said first, but still planning to call the fire marshal on Monday regardless. Knowing that we couldn't stay no matter the outcome, assuming work stoppage was not on the table, we started packing the morning of my post. We luckily have a good friend who works in law and put us in touch with a lawyer friend willing to chat with us over the phone on Sunday evening. Like most of you, the lawyer was also very weirded out by the whole thing. There's a basic constitutional right being denied here, fellas. But also said, had this been an issue with the landlord, this would have been a very straightforward case. But HOAs are their own behemoth, and I would need to review this with other lawyers too. We thanked them for their time and told them to bill us for the consultation and that we would call them back the following week if we couldn't resolve this on our own. So we spent the rest of that weekend hurriedly packing and getting as much done as we could before the construction began on Monday. Our condo was already a big moving mess by weekend's end, and while hubby was on the phone with the attorney Sunday evening, who should knock on my door but the HOA president. I had been told by a neighbor to expect more communication from the HOA, so yes, I have expected this. Of course, I said to myself as I answered the door, they wait until about 12 hours before project start time to give us the info that we should have gone out months ago. The HOA president introduced herself, let herself in with invitation, and handed me a single-page construction blueprint of our building that merely highlighted the building sections being worked on, with so-called "no resident access permitted during work hours" in 20-point font at the top. And yes, there was no other written information, no timeline or project map, no other project details whatsoever, just a useless diagram. She was going to casually chat with the affected units about this big project and had nothing actually organized. She was about to launch into her prepared chat, but dear readers, I lost it there and then. Normally, I'm a very non-confrontational person, but I think it was a combination of it already being a rough autumn before this drama started, and whatever small hopes I had about finally being given proper written information with the visit dashed. This is absolutely unacceptable, I snapped. One full business day to append our lives is absolutely insane. It went on from there, no personal insults, swearing or screaming, though I was a bit loud. I channeled my rage at her, my voice even breaking slightly, and her responses were remorseless. Instead of being conciliatory in the least, she made it out like none of this was her fault, passing the buck, another classic HOA maneuver. Just lovely. It was mainly more of the same canned response we received in the emails that this project was necessary and has been on everyone's radar for some time. HOA and property management have always done this, squirrely answers that don't directly acknowledge the question. I reiterated that we all understood and that the complaint was entirely about the lack of adequate notice and complete disrespect for our schedules and lives, but she was being purposely dense. To my complaints about how acutely this affected our lives and work as a very busy family with toddlers, her response was, "I am doing my best and I'm only trying to help people." I used to teach high school. It was the same "not sorry" look and excuse I got from the class checkoffs at the end of the quarter. But here it was instead coming from a grown woman who's been AARP eligible since Clinton was president. "Yeah, that's not good enough and doesn't matter," I replied. She snapped back, saying that the homeowners all voted for this work and that we should be taking this up with our landlord, that it wasn't her, HOA president's, fault if the landlord was not attending meetings or keeping us apprised. I talked to the other homeowners, everyone else is just as surprised by this notice. This is not our landlord's fault here, no one else knew about this. "I sent out some information on Wednesday," the day before the notice, "so you should have read that. Not my fault that you didn't." "Oh yeah, your message from the president, doc?" I read it all, utterly no mention that we would be getting this notice literally the following day. "We've been dealing with permits and the construction and this is out of our hands and—" "What on earth are you talking about? You're the HOA president, they listen to you." At that, she turned around and left. "I don't need to hear this," she grumbled out loud as she walked away. Naturally, hubby missed the whole show. The ensuing adrenaline rush gave way to dread about causing more problems for us and Elle, with whom we had been on very good terms for years. We had emailed them on Friday, asking for either some kind of solution or be allowed to break our lease without penalty, and we hadn't heard back yet, which was adding to our general apprehension. Wanting Elle to hear about the confrontation from us before possibly getting an earful from the HOA, I texted them about what happened. The landlord was miffed that the HOAP threw them under the bus, and they reiterated that they also received no advance warning. It was such a unique experience that they were not entirely sure how to handle it all, so they let us out of the lease. We started looking for a new home that night, as we said we would do in our original post, so we then sent the HOA and construction company our daily schedules for the work week with required access times, and it was the last thing we did before bed. The board member in charge of the project responded the next morning with the same canned response. "Regular entry and exit cannot always be accommodated while the construction is ongoing." The construction crew arrived early Monday. I sought out the site supervisor before the imprisonment began at 8:30, hoping that a cordial face-to-face would help us get reasonable accommodations. He was rather uncooperative and provided no help. Construction began in earnest. I'd forgotten that demolition work just outside my front door would be very loud, so we all wore hearing protection indoors when the jackhammers were directly outside. Toddlers could not nap and we don't have family around with spare rooms, so many naps were missed and the kids were generally grouchy and miserable the whole first week. We went on with our days that first week as best we could, as they couldn't legally restrict access. We understood that these draconian orders were to keep costs down and let the work continue without interruption, but as no respect was shown for us, no respect was reciprocated. Like I told one neighbor, we shouldn't have to suffer the consequences of their poor planning. When I would have to leave, I would stick my head out and just loudly proclaim, "I have to leave in 10 minutes, please!" But I often was able to just walk in and out of my front door as I needed to, especially before the work really reached our front door. Hubby contacted the FM that Monday and explained what was going on. FM was incredulous and said he would pay the site an impromptu visit the next and follow up with us. FM was the fire marshal. After not hearing back for 2 to 3 days, hubby called them up again and his response was odd. It seems like they didn't visit the site, only mentioning that they forwarded the information to the city's planning and permits department that handles all things related to buildings, constructions, and codes. We never heard back from either the fire marshal or the planning department, but we also did not follow up a second or more times as we were devoting all our energy to moving and it was no longer our problem. We did our part to notify the fire marshal about potential safety violations, it's all we could do. We never learned if anything came about from our efforts there, and we spent the first week of construction solely looking for a new place. We contacted roughly 40 properties, toured about 15, and settled on something in the same neighborhood. The wonderful thing about rental home hunting at this time of year is though that there's less inventory there and there's no competition and landlords are more willing to negotiate, so we found a nice place at a reduced rent, started lease discussions by Wednesday and verbally finalized the agreement by the end of that week. The second Monday rolled around and I was dreading the impending construction noise, but it never came. Everything was quiet. And to clarify here, there was construction previously, but this was supposed to be the date when they bring out the really big guns, so to say, and living there would have been almost impossible. No workers that I could see, they never showed up, no oversized F-150s or Rams anywhere. Oh boy, maybe there was a work stoppage from the fire marshal. I went around the quiet complex looking for fire marshal signs, but nothing. All of their stuff, porta potties, construction cones, dumpsters, etc. was still there. It was like that for the rest of that week and into the third week. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth and jinx whatever this beautiful quietude was, I did not ask around and simply went about our week packing, signing the lease, dealing with the moving logistics, etc., all the while also dealing with toddlers. Movers came on Saturday and we spent Thanksgiving week getting situated in the new place and going back to the old place to clean and turn it over back to L. Even into the third week though, still nothing. I was extremely curious, but I had no free time whatsoever to find out what was going on. While at the old place cleaning one evening after the move, I bumped into a neighbor. Apparently, the work they started on the far side of the building complex at the end of the first week / beginning of second ended up being much more awful than anticipated. The walkway / something started to give way and crumble unexpectedly when they began their work. Several residents there lost their storage units in the underground parking garage, so it appears that construction shifted all their work and resources to that side of the deal. The construction crew may have stopped the work entirely to reevaluate next steps, I don't know, I just know that I didn't see anyone and that it was all quiet for me. I don't know where exactly the HOA president lives, but I believe it's somewhere there, and while I don't normally wish for awful things to happen to others, I was glad to hear that they may possibly now be as or more inconvenienced than we were. Good riddance. We met up with Al yesterday to hand over the keys and say goodbye. We gapped out the drama and toured the construction zone. Landlord mentioned that there was an incident some 15+ years ago where there was some kind of HOA fraud that was discovered and someone went to jail. They were attempting to explain away some of the severe dysfunctionality of the current HOA, saying that the community was taken by surprise and the people who stepped in to serve were not ready to do so or knew what they were doing, inheriting a mess so extreme. They may all be, I replied, but that doesn't excuse this situation all these years later, nor is it now the same board. Today is the second Sunday in our new home and we are finally able to focus on settling, organizing and getting back to normal routines. Hubby and I have renewed our solemn vow to one another to have and hold from this day forward for rich or poor, in sickness and health, that we shall never buy in a damn HOA until death do us part. Before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/petty revenge. It is titled, "Steal my skillet, I will steal it back and put you in between a rock and a hard place." So simple and quick, my cousin stole a skillet I got from an old friend of my dad's, found out about when I saw it in one of his pics he posted, don't know how he got it, but I was pissed. I knew where he lived and while it was hours away, I want my skillet back. I recruited a friend who had certain skills and off we went. Cousin lived in an apartment and I knew what time he was gone. The place was cheap, didn't have CCTV. My friend did his thing and got inside. He found the skillet, which apparently cousin left soaking in the sink. We stopped by a couple places and ate at a restaurant and then went home. Well, my cousin visited a couple of weeks later, and I feigned cleaning my place. He knew I made a stink of my missing skillet, and he acted as if he wasn't the snake that stole it. As he was chatting up some of the friends, I made a loud noise and showed everyone my found skillet. I made a big show of where I found it and was thanking everyone and anyone for the discovery. My cousin looked like he had swallowed fecal matter. He did make a stink about thinking someone broke into his house. He cannot accuse of it though, because he would have to admit to stealing my skillet. If he did, his parents would put him in a world of hurt. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.